permasyhuran Singapura. Dengan satu perjanjian yang telah dibuat di antara Kerajaan Malaysia dan Kerajaan Singapura, maka telah dipersetujui bahawa Singapura tidak lagi menjadi sebuah negeri dalam Malaysia.
When the news were announced, it caught a lot of people by surprise and it sent shockwaves throughout the country.
And there were also Indonesia. I think the Foreign Affairs Ministry must be very gleeful about what's going on between Singapore and Malaysia.
This is a set of telegrams which were being sent on the 9th of August, marked emergency and secret, trying to make sense of your very rapidly unfolding situation. So these exchanges take place on the 9th of August, but I'll start with the telegram that Kuan Yew has sent to Harold Wilson, the British Prime Minister. By the time you have decoded this message, you will know that the Tunku has proclaimed, and I have agreed and simultaneously also proclaimed, Singapore as a separate and sovereign nation. You can depend on my colleagues and I. We will always want to work on terms of honour and friendship with Britain. This telegram does speak to the idea of Lee. He recognised that there had been a lot of disappointment that the British had not been kept in the loop.
He had to keep the British in the dark. He didn't want the British to interfere and to steer the outcome in ways that may work for the British but will not be useful for Singapore and Malaysia. And then he assured the British that he would want to continue a very productive relationship with them. For the simple reason that at that point in time, British bases were still the best guarantee of security and stability for Singapore in the region.
If you look at Harold Wilson's published diaries, it is seen as such a disaster, this split, that Harold actually comes back from his holiday early and comes to London and, sort of bangs heads together in Whitehall, sort of saying, what are we going to do?
At Royal Air Force in Tena is stationed the Chief Airstrike Force.
For the British, the Federation was really important. They saw that it was a really fundamental to British power in the region. There's an additional letter on the 9th of August. This is sent by Mr. Mills, who was the Deputy High Commissioner based in Singapore, to the Commonwealth Relations Office. Lee reiterated utter dependence of Singapore on British bases for at least 10, 15 or 20 years. And without the bases, he was finished.
Mr. Lee knew that he would still need to depend on British support, especially in security terms. Indonesia, because it occupies the biggest landmass, has always felt that it was the natural leader of this part of the world.
And as far as President Sukarno is concerned in Jakarta, the Malaysia scheme is a neo-colonial plot. The Indonesians also concerned, of course, about the fact that you've still got foreign military bases in the region as well.
The moment Singapore separated from Malaysia, it caused happiness in Jakarta because from the Jakarta perspective, Malaysia is as a political entity do not have the right to exist.
So this was a report which the British High Commissioner in Jakarta sent on 9th of August.
The conversations between a British diplomat with an Indonesian diplomat named Ganesh Halsono. I have just had 45 minutes with Ganesh Halsono. He found it hard to conceal his glee at the latest turns of events.
The Indonesia that always said that Malaysia was not a viable entity, and this was now proved. Indonesia could say to the United Nations, "I told you so."
I'm not that surprised when the Indonesians said, "I told you so," because since 1963, Jakarta has been consistently against the formation of Malaysia.
So now that Singapore is to be separated out, Ganesh then asked,
Would the British still wish to remain in the area? If so, for what reason? If Singapore is to be free and independent sovereign state, Indonesia is prepared to enter into a new relationship with her. As long as Singapore is seen to be free from neo-colonialism, then there's a possibility of Indonesia and Singapore having a diplomatic relationship. But at this point in time, I do not believe that Indonesia was ready to extend friendly hands to Singapore.
So this is the telegram from Harold Wilson to Mr. Lee. Wilson had been holidaying. He needed to come back to deal with this rapidly unfolding developments in Malaysia. I wanted to let you know that we have decided to recognize Singapore as an independent state right away, and that we are announcing this in tomorrow morning's papers. He flags for Lee that it has major implications for Britain, and that it was a matter of urgency now for them to work out a best path forward. And I think even though he's saying, yes, we're really disappointed, I think it's important to note that he also makes this point that, but you may be sure that we wish you well.